Hello and welcome to this Roads and Bridges Quick Chat. Today, we'll be covering an overview of the roadway safety infrastructure legislation. I'm Gavin Jenkins, Senior Managing Editor of Roads and Bridges, and today we're speaking with Cameron Green, Director of Federal Government Relations at ATSSA. Cameron, welcome and thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about your background before we start?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Gavin. So as you mentioned, my name's Cameron Green. I'm the Director of Federal Government Relations for the American Traffic Safety Services Association. I've been with ATSSA for about the last 5.5 years. Prior to that, I was a staffer for Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island for about 3.5 years. So about 8 to 9 years here in DC, and I'm happy to be with you today.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're here. Today, we are going to be looking at the history of key legislation impacting the roadway safety industry, as well as what current programs fund safety infrastructure projects. Also, what the future may hold for the industry and the key areas of advocacy to keep an eye on. Let's dive right in. First up, what is the safety message roadway safety professionals should be sharing with our policymakers?
I think safety professionals have an easy message. It's that safety is universal. It's cliche, but we always say that there are no Republican streets, there are no Democrat streets. Everyone uses the same roads, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And when we go to talk to members of Congress, it's an easy message. It's that I think for everyone, we want to make sure that when your constituents go out, whether they go to school, whether they go to work, that they get home safely. And so our message has always been that safety has no political leaning. Everyone should be invested in safety. It's everyone uses the roadways, whether you're walking, biking, or in your vehicle. Everyone is out on the road each day. So it's a very basic human right almost to guarantee that you're safe on the roadways. And so that's what we tell them. That's what we have our advocates tell, whether they're in DC or whether they're in their state capitals, talking to their state representatives. We just always remind them that there are no roads that have a D or an R on them, that every road is for everybody. And that's an easy message for us.
All right, looking backwards a bit, how has roadway safety infrastructure legislation evolved over the years?
Sure. So I would say that modern roadway safety legislation really hasn't popped up until maybe around the early 2000s, and you see in 2005 with the Safety Loop Bill. And that's when you see the introduction of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, which is this large core federal aid highway program that funds all the work that ATSSA members do. So when you look at what's behind me in my background, the guardrail, the pavement marking, signage, that all gets funded through this program. And that becomes a key part of roadway safety legislation up until the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which passed back in 2021. So really over the last 15 to 20 years, we've seen this real focus on roadway safety. Prior to that, after the creation of the interstate system in the 60s and 70s, you see some roadway safety infrastructure investment, but not really to the extent that we've seen since 2005.
All right, what are the current federal programs that impact the industry and provide funding for these projects?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP, is the core one that our members and all of our contractors and distributors and manufacturers rely on. And this program is set up to, through a formula, send money down to state DOTs in order for them to execute their strategic highway safety plan. And what this does is it allows states to kind of pick and choose what their specific needs are and put HSIP money, programs and projects. And so what we see is each year states will get that allotment through a formula program, and they will be able to use that money as they need on a case-by-case basis, whether that's a large project throughout their highway system or a smaller project in some of their local municipalities. And that's kind of what we focus on here at ATSSA in terms of large-scale safety infrastructure funding through legislation.
You mentioned the Highway Safety Improvement Program. Can you talk a little bit more about what safety projects that program funds?
Sure. So it has a couple of different uses. So you can use it on new construction. So when you're building a highway, you need to build out a lot of that important safety, those safety programs and projects. So like I said, the stuff behind me on the screen, that it funds the basic nut and bolt safety projects. It also funds maintenance, which is very important as a lot of the infrastructure and hardware that is out there on our roadways is aging and is older. So it's just as important that as we're putting out new infrastructure and getting things up to date, that we can go back and we can either maintain infrastructure that has been hit or damaged or worn over time, or replace it with some newer devices that our members are out there manufacturing and installing.
What impact did the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act have on roadway safety infrastructure legislation?
Yeah, it really was the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which was passed back in 2021, is this all-encompassing $1.2 trillion infrastructure package, but it had a real focus on safety, particularly roadway safety. And to kind of just point out a couple of the important programs within that. So the HSIP funding levels were raised to a number we haven't seen before. So back in the FAST Act, back from 2015, the HSIP level was about $2.6 billion annually. So in this bill, we see it up to $3.3 billion annually. So you see a real investment from Congress in making sure that the Highway Safety Improvement Program has the funds it needs. There's also a real emphasis on vulnerable road users in this bill, and you see that in the Safe Streets for All program. It's this new competitive grant program that's funded at about $1 billion annually. And there's a real focus on protecting pedestrian, bike safety, and also work zones are included in this as well, which is something that's very close to our hearts here at ATSSA. And we also see a real focus for the first time in a while in both rural and tribal safety, something that we really pushed hard for leading up to this package. For a long time, rural and tribal safety has been overlooked in our eyes by Congress. So we're really excited to see them really take a look at this and put real meaningful funding towards making sure that folks in those communities are safe.
What is one aspect of roadway safety that you feel Congress could put a larger emphasis on?
Yeah, I just touched on it in kind of talking about the vulnerable road users, but work zone safety is an issue that we really think is the next one that Congress needs to tackle. Our members are out there on the roadways each day doing all of this life-saving work, and it's becoming more and more dangerous for them. Where distracted driving is on the rise, aggressive driving is on the rise, impaired driving is on the rise, all while our members are out on the side of the roadway doing this work to keep everyone else in their community safe. They also deserve to be safe. And so we really are looking towards, or we've been talking with members of Congress about really trying to invest and look at roadway safety the same way, or work zone safety the same way that they do in overall safety, whether that's in behavioral safety or infrastructure safety. Work zone safety is something that's been overlooked, and we really want to see a focus on that in the next reauthorization coming up here. I guess in a couple of years, in 2026 will be the next highway bill. So that's a real focus for ours heading into that package.
As the way Americans commute and travel change, how has legislation adapted to these changes?
Yeah, so and I think we see that in the IIJA. We see this real focus, especially during the pandemic. A lot of folks began to commute, whether that's through walking or cycling, and using some of the more non-traditional means of transportation. And so we really see Congress in this bill take a real look at making sure that we can increase safety for those folks. And our members do that through the installation of like bike lanes. So anytime you see the green paint and the plastic delineators along that bike path, that's some of the great work that our ATSSA members are doing. Crosswalks and the crossing signals are also work done by ATSSA members. So we see Congress, though, really focus on putting more resources to that type of safety, which we really hadn't seen before either.
Well, what do you see as the next major topic then that Congress will have to prepare for in terms of roadway safety infrastructure?
Sure. So I think the big one for especially our membership is looking at how we bring connected and autonomous vehicles into our roadway system and doing it safely, more importantly. We know that there is the desire to get these vehicles out on the road, and we know that the vehicles are going to be out on the roadway. But for us, it's making sure that it's done correctly and it's done safely. And we want to make sure that these vehicles interact with both the legacy infrastructure and the new infrastructure being installed in a way that allows the cars to. The idea for these vehicles is that they're going to make the roadway safer. However, if it's not done correctly and the marriage between the vehicles and the infrastructure doesn't line up, we could have some real problems on our hands. And we go back to work zone safety. One of our big fears is, say, when you paint over the existing lines on a road to put in a work zone and you have them detour around, what if the autonomous vehicle reads the covered up lines and goes right through the work zone? So there are things that we look out for Our members, we led a study about with the pavement markings to see which type of markings are picked up by a CAV better. And it's something that our members are really looking forward to getting more information on. And I know that they are developing new technologies, whether that's V2X, the vehicle to infrastructure, using cloud-based technology and cloud-based solutions to talk to vehicles through infrastructure. And our members are kind of are going to be on the leading edge of that discussion.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for today. I'm Gavin Jenkins, Senior Managing Editor of Roads and Bridges. And I'd just like to thank you again, Cameron. He is the Director of Federal Government Relations at ATSSA. Thanks for joining us. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in.